Welcome to the Powered by Age-Friendly City Zoomcast reality-style podcast.
We are movers and shakers, shaking up the old notion of silent, helpless, invisible seniors.
This is a new series of podcasts funded by the City of Vancouver and the 411 Senior Center Society.
As PBA AFC ambassadors, we
raise awareness,
share our original stories and poems,
inform, advocate, and involve seniors in discussing important social issues.
In short, these podcasts will help us,
you, in creating an age-friendly city for Vancouver today,
tomorrow the world.
You can hear us everywhere podcasts are heard. Okay, today is Thursday. It is our podcast creation day. Welcome to Powered by Age. Powered by Age is a senior-led podcast, and today we have a special facilitator for our presentation, and that is Kendra Crowell. And Kendra is a knowledge keeper, and she works with a group of Indigenous elders who are learning the technology, and over time are going to be also joining us in presentations. But today our special topic is TwoSpirit, and she'll be exploring that from 4 different perspectives. First, on raising what is TwoSpirit, understanding what TwoSpirit is, what it means, then raising a TwoSpirit child. We'll be looking at a wedding, first transgender wedding in British Columbia, and she'll be talking about how the culture, Metis culture, has helped with her understanding and raising and dealing with the challenges. So at this time, I'll have each person that's on introduce yourself and give an adjective that reflects how you are feeling today. Gail?
You. Sorry, I was trying to get my notepad. Hey, my name's Neil. I'm a writer, a poet. I'm a senior. I'm well into being a senior, but fortunately healthy. What else can I tell you? I've traveled the world. My favorite saying is I've been from South Island, New Zealand to North Island, Iceland, and 1,000 places in between. A traveler.
Welcome to being here.
Hi, Robin.
Gail?
Hi, I'm Gail Harwood. I'm a writer, and I've also traveled much of the world. Africa, parts of Asia, parts of South America. And when I finally came home after my sojourn, I traveled this great country of ours. And I still have Nunavut and Newfoundland to do.
Wow.
So my word for today is thoughtful reminiscences. 2 words.
Nice. Judith?
Hi, I'm Judith Rainey, and I'm venturing forth into learning new things through podcasting and feeling really kind of overwhelmed at the moment.
Well, that's a word. Okay, Luke?
Yep, my name is Luke, and I'm feeling very hungry this morning, afternoon, whatever time it is.
Robin?
Yeah, hi. My name is Robin Erickson. I am out of sorts and discombobulated, I think is my adjective for my word.
Okay, I'm Charlotte. I think I said I'm Charlotte. I'm the host for this exciting adventure that we call Powered by Age. This is a program that's sponsored in part by 411 Senior Center and the City of Vancouver. And now to present to you the wonderful, inventive storyteller, creative, wise woman, Kendra Crowell.
Thank you for that. You don't know me yet. First off, I'd like to explain what two-spirited means. And two-spirited means gender identity. If someone is two-spirited, their body has both a masculine and feminine side and can fill both gender roles, which I think is a talent. My daughter, my interpretation of my daughter is she identifies as a transgender woman. Gay is a sexual preference. Transgender is a gender identity preference. First off, I'd like to tell you a story about, well, first off, my daughter and her husband were the first two to get married in British Columbia under the new legislative, like they were legally able to get married at Bear Creek Park. And I think we have a video of that. So maybe we can do the video first and then I can get into talking.
Yes, Luke's going to bring it up.
I did the video, by the way, too. It was a 6-minute video. I didn't think it would go viral the way it did. I hope you liked it.
Oh, would you like to share some things about what we were seeing?
Well, that wedding, the reason why I wanted you to see that first is because I never ever thought that would happen for her. I never thought she'd get married and be as happy as she is. Because of the way society is, there's a lot of people that aren't accepting as, for transgendered people or two-spirited gays. They don't accept a lot of stuff, especially in the workplace, school, like you name it. So with all of that combined, I never thought that day would come. But it did.
Yes.
See, when it comes to my daughter with working right now, she'll get a job. And then once she gets a job, like as you can see her, a lot of people can't tell that she was born a male, and she doesn't really like to advertise it. So when she gets a job, they will let her work for a while, but then when they find out she's transgender, they make it impossible for her to do her job. They'll do whatever they can. They want her to quit because they don't know how to deal with it. People are not educated when it comes to that, and they're afraid of it. So she's had it pretty tough. We were in a hospital one day. She had to go to the hospital. And when they found out she was transgender, they wouldn't touch her for over 13 hours. They wanted to do an AIDS test on her and, things like that. So when she was in the hospital for the second time, one of the paramedics was gay. And she was the one who brought my daughter to the hospital. Mm-hmm. So when she saw that my daughter was still there, she flipped out and she got mad. So they finally took care of my daughter after 13 hours, but they wouldn't touch her until they had all her test results back. It's been a tough road for her. In schools, I think that she had more problems with the teachers and the principals than she did the kids going to school.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Pardon?
I'm not surprised.
Like she really had it tough. They didn't know which bathroom to give her at school. So they would say, well, we can't let her go into the men's washroom and we can't let her go into the women's washroom. So what they decided to do was give her the principal's washroom, which she was in her glory because she would take her friends in there. They would go and put on their makeup, change their clothes, sit for a while, and have a blast, right? So a lot of things that happened to her, there was good that came out of it. She went to Guilford Park School, and she got because of her culture, being Aboriginal, she got a Courage Award for going to school like who she is. I never allowed her to, excuse the expression, but I never allowed her to be in a closet. She always expressed who she is and who she wanted to be. And that's why she's such a strong person now. So,
What are some other things as a parent that you found were helpful in working with maybe even other parents now?
The way my daughter dealt with each situation has been helpful in educating other parents on how to treat a situation. Like, for instance, going to school, there was one parent who, her son wanted to be a woman, but he was only about 8-9 years old. So she didn't know whether or not to allow him to wear a dress to school, or makeup, nail polish, anything like that. And I said, he is who he wants to be. Allow him to be who he wants to be. Don't hold back. And that's what she did. She allowed him to go to school, and kids were fine with it.
In conversations with other family members, did you have people who challenged, wouldn't accept her as a girl, or wouldn't accept her as being two-spirit?
My family?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I come from a family of 9 boys and 3 girls, me being one of the girls. And there has been some problems with my family. A lot of them can't accept it because most of them are men's men. But my dad had a problem because Jerica is the firstborn grandchild to my family and to my dad. But whenever he talked to my daughter, he would always tell her, if you're going to come over to my place, I want you to leave who you are at the door and be normal. And I said, the only normal I know is on a cycle on a dryer. So my dad and I, it has strained our relationships, but we're slowly getting back together because my daughter is older now. But when we found out, because back then, over 30 years ago, you didn't know about being transgender. It was either gay or lesbian or whatever, right? So we didn't know who she was in the beginning. But then came the blame game, is what I call it. Everybody blamed each other for her being gay. If we hadn't let her wear makeup, she wouldn't be who she is now, stuff like that, right? But it all worked out because I took my daughter to Winnipeg to meet her dad. And her dad has several other children, and they're gay. Transgender comes from her side of his side of the family. So it started to become okay with my family that they didn't get blamed for her being who she is. So it was a weird situation. But she's good now. We're all learning to they're all learning to talk with her now at a different level, now that she's of age too, right?
Right. Is she writing? I understand you say that she's writing a book?
No, she wants to.
Mm-hmm.
There is a book out there called Transgender Warriors that she hooked me up with, and I read it to understand her more because I didn't know, how do you raise someone who has who's transgender, gay, or a lesbian? How do you raise someone like that? There is no book out there for that. So I think what mine was I raised her the way she wanted me to raise her. Because when she was 13 years old, I took her to a motel room. And I had asked her prior if she liked boys or girls. And she said she liked girls, but she was lying to me. So I took her to a motel and I put makeup and toys, boys' toys and everything on a makeup mirror. And she kept passing it all weekend. And she looked at me and I said, if you want to play with something, you go ahead. She said, anything? I said, go ahead. So she separated everything. And she started playing with the makeup and everything. And then she turned and looked at me and said, Mom, I like boys. I said, okay, now I know how to raise you. She's very smart. And she's a really hard worker. And when you see her in that video, I mean, a lot of people, when they look at her, they can't tell. But then when they do find out, they get a little upset that they didn't know.
I know that you presenting things in 4 segments, but at this point where you're talking about raising a transgender child, does anyone have questions that you'd like to ask, Kendra?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. And I guess my comment, Kendra, is partly congratulations, because I think that it's a really brave and bold kind of standpoint as a parent to be able to just have such unconditional acceptance of who this little person is and what they want to be. And that, you know, oftentimes our big people aren't brave enough to allow our little people to really be the shiny things that they are, in all that they are, two-spirited or, you know, whatever that may be, because the normal box is, you know, often how we try to shuffle ourselves into, so that there's some way of fitting in. But the way that you approached raising your daughter, I think, really speaks to an integrity that you have. And so I'm really interested in that, because that, yeah, I guess that's part and parcel of how your daughter, how you can speak so highly of your daughter, also comes from that integrity that you took on to raise your daughter as your daughter.
Well, with her right now, like her and her husband, they find it hard to even rent a place because they're married. They're a gay couple is what the society sees them as. So we live together. We've been living together for about 8 years now, and it's a perfect match. We love being with each other, you know, but they cannot go out and just say, you know, I would like to rent this apartment. And as soon as they find out that they're gay, there's a no all the time. So their lives are made miserable. So that's where I step in as a parent to help them out, right?
How do they find out? I mean, what is it about the rental documents that would let a renter or landlord know?
It's a lot of times it's her appearance sometimes. And a lot of times it's neighbors will say something. That's why we've had to move around a lot, is because of that, right? Because a neighbor would find out, and instead of fighting them, we just moved. But it's on her paper, like her name isn't legally changed yet. Her real name is Jarrett, but she identifies as Jerica.
I see.
So they're working on getting her name changed, and like they're so open and honest about themselves too, that there is a law in BC or in Canada that states if my daughter was across the street and one of you knew she was a guy and you ran up and you beat her, she would get charged for concealing her identity, not you.
What? That law's still on the books?
Yes. See, when I first found out my daughter was transgender, we did a lot of research on it. And I did a lot of research when I first found out she was gay, but I had to go to the library and find out a lot of things. And the suicide rate was crazy. So that was one of my decisions, is to raise her the way she wanted to be raised and try to make it as simple as I could for her, which is impossible. But, you know, we wound up finding out this information because of the research we were doing. And she was attacked one day at a bus stop by other women. They beat her up because of who she is. And the police officer who dealt with the case said to me, why didn't she just beat them up? And I said, well, she's a guy. And she said, so what? There was 6 of them on her, because my daughter wouldn't fight back, right? She had her lip split, everything. So because of that law, she didn't do anything, because she figured she would be charged for it. It's crazy, but it's true. Does anybody have questions or anything?
I do. I thought that it is illegal under the Human Rights Act or Human Rights Code to discriminate against a person in renting a home based on their sexual identity.
That's true, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to do it, because they
Of
do
course.
do it.
Oh, yeah.
They do it, right? They don't care about the law a lot of the
Oh, yeah.
time.
Yeah. And a lot of gay or transgender people just don't want to bother to get into it. In my years in the downtown east side, I quite a number of gay and transgender people in my adult classes. And what disgusted me, the students were fine. They were fine. My colleagues, a couple of my colleagues, I threatened to the union if they did their attitude. I was disgusted.
Yeah.
With the attitude of some of my colleagues. I said, what? So I have hope. This younger generation, the millennials, seem pretty cool.
Yeah.
And now they're getting into positions of authority and teaching and things like that. So hopefully things get better for these kids.
Well, there is, I have some friends that we're looking for a place right now. And I have some friends that have been on Craigslist and things like that. And they've sent me advertisements where there is people that are looking to rent to gay couples and stuff, because they said that they're more trustworthy. So something else is out there, right?
Yeah, it's very sad thing, Kendra, that, if something's against the law, and I know, landlords think they can get away with anything right now because of the housing shortage.
Yes.
But if something's against the law and you just go along with it, they're just getting away with it.
Yeah, but you got to pick your fights too, right? Like there's so many of them. Like, who do you go up against?
And I think the issue too, it's not like free law. There's some types of cases, accidents, you can get lawyers who take a case on contingency. But have you found when you've tried to get help of a lawyer that, that there's a fee, or are there lawyers in human rights that just offer their services?
With me, they always want a fee. Mm-hmm. I haven't met one yet that has just offered their services.
That's the issue I found with people when they ask that question, why do you just go along? That they've called numerous lawyers, and the lawyers tell them, well, there's a fee, of what's your budget. They really, I don't know, does anyone know if there is any legal practice, human relations, human rights practice lawyers?
What about the People's Law Court?
An actual a group of lawyers who do poverty law in terms of
the People's Law School, that's what it's called.
Well,
yes.
No, I'm thinking of the Pivot Legal Society.
Oh, okay.
Pivot Legal Society does do pro bono work.
That's good to know.
PIVOT. Yeah.
I think the thing, just of people that I've discussed this with, is that there's so few lawyers in the area and so many people who have cases, whether it's violations in school or at work, that there's just a waiting list. And if there's an urgency to move or get into a place, as Kendra said, it's easier to just move on than to stick trying to get a lawyer to help you fight the case.
Yes. It's like, for me, myself, if I obtained a lawyer, I'd be fighting everybody all the time, right? So you just gotta pick your fights. Like I said, there's so many of them. Who do you go against, right? And then once you do take a landlord to court, do you really want to live there anymore? So there's that too, right? Like it starts a ripple effect, is what I call it. So you got to be careful on what you do and who you talk to. Like, we don't talk to a lot of our neighbors around here. A lot of them are totally dead set against transgender. And with me, the more questions you ask about transgender or gays or whatever I can help you with, the more educated you are. It's a difficult situation. Like, a lot of lawyers are not educated enough to know about transgender. So who do you go to?
I was thinking right away, and there are a lot of good organizations, and I think that they should get together and get very political about this.
Yes.
Make it the law of the land. And at least with housing, that's provincial jurisdiction. And the province can write that into the laws of BC at least. But to make it federal jurisdiction and throw out that stupid
but it's not
an opposite gender.
It's not just housing, it's being able to work too, because my daughter's been in positions where some very high companies didn't know she was transgender, but then once they found out, they made it difficult for her to work. Like in one instance, everybody was wearing the same shirts, and they all had the size they wanted, but they would give my daughter an extra large to cover her, what she calls her junk, right? So they made it impossible for her to really like the job. And as soon as they found out, they were doing things to her that she was like, Mom, I can't do this anymore. It's really hard on her. It's, that's why she's not working now. So instead of not working and going out and working in society, she created her own job at home. So that's the kind of when there's a problem that arises, she knows how to fix it for herself.
You mentioned that within your culture, there have been some things that have given you some resolution or peace in dealing with these challenges.
Well, one thing, my children, both my kids, growing up, they know that when there's women working in the kitchen and cooking and cleaning, if they need help, you go help them. So we go to some Aboriginal functions, and my daughter and I would go into the kitchen and we'd say to them, would you like some help? And they'd look at me and say, yes, you can come and help, but she's got to go sit down. And we're like, okay. So my daughter started getting upset, thinking, oh my God, they don't even want me in the kitchen because I'm, transgender. So then I talked to the women and I said, why is it you don't want her in the kitchen? And they said, because she's two-spirited. She's highly honored in our culture. So she doesn't come in the kitchen. We serve her. I was like, cool. So I let her know. So then she started coming to all the functions. And she was able to do the things in our culture that most people wouldn't allow her to do, like, sit and be honored. That's one thing that really helped out, is her showing her that she is accepted in the community, right? Plus makeup tips, anything to do with makeup or hair or anything, she's really good at advising everybody. So they really like that. Clothes.
What about, I think there was a program that talked about smoke lodges, and at the Indigenous bookstore, there was a reading, and someone was reading about being accepted, two-spirit people being accepted in the smoke lodge. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, they're really highly honored. Put it this way, in the Calgary Stampede, when they put up the pole and then you see Aboriginals running around it with ribbons, tying the ribbon around the pole, they're all transgender.
Oh.
And because our culture, they believe that what I had said, that two-spirited people can give you the advice of a man or a woman, right? So they are highly honored. A lot of the transgender are in my culture is they're shamans, and they believe they're magical, is what they believe, that they have some kind of special powers, which I believe they do. But the Longhouse, they are highly honored in the Longhouse too. They when it comes to our sacred medicines like the sage and the sweetgrass and the tobacco and things like that, when it comes to that, they don't want two-spirited people to touch it because they can absorb all the energy from the medicine. So that's why they're not allowed to touch it.
Okay. Does anyone have a question about that? Say, Luke, if you were at an auction, I would say you bought it. He's making hand signs.
I hope I'm making sense to everybody. This is my first time doing this and talking about it. So I got so many thoughts in my head and they're overrunning each other.
Someone mentioned at a different program that there are 100 different nations within Canada. So when you say your culture, is there a specific nation that you're speaking of?
Well, I'm Métis. I'm a Red River Métis. I'm from Manitoba. And there is First Nations out here too. So it's all within that umbrella. All the Aboriginals.
Mm-hmm. And for people who may not know, what's the difference in Métis and First Nations?
Métis is a nice way of saying half-breed. And First Nations is full-blooded. They're like a Cree would be full Cree, things like that. We're what somebody said the other day is a Heinz 57, so we got a little bit of everything in us. Oh, I can go on about the Métis.
I could claim Métis.
Yes, you could. You could.
Okay, so going forth, what are some ways that people could be helpful with people, either parents or people dealing with some of the issues that you've mentioned?
Educate yourself. Pick your fights. Educate yourself on transgender, gays, lesbians. Do a lot of research. Talk to people. The more you talk, the more educated people become on it, right? Because a lot of people would ask me questions and be afraid to ask me. And I always told them, ask, because the more you ask, the more you're educated. Be open-minded too.
Do the Métis and the BC Indigenous groups, do they have similar views on TwoSpirit, or?
Yes, they're very accepting on TwoSpirited. There is going around where you will see an Aboriginal person standing there, and then they take a brush to the camera, and when the brush comes back, they're in full regalia, and some of them are men that go into the women mode. So it's beautiful. See, with my daughter, a lot of people don't understand that when I get up in the morning, I get up, I shower, I get dressed, and I go. She has to get up in the morning, shave. She has to go from being a man to a woman, right? And it's a long process for her. It's hard. It's hard for her in mornings. I know it is. It takes up the bathroom a lot.
So she has elected, not to use any of the hormones or things that change a person's, change their appearance. So that she's not using any of the hormone suppressors.
No, she was also one of the first ones to go on the waiting list for when they brought the surgery out here. I forget the name of the surgery. I'm sorry, it slipped my mind. But she was one of the first ones to get the surgery, and she didn't want it. She doesn't want to change who she is. She likes being who she is. Mm-hmm. And she doesn't take hormones, but she does get the stuff done to her face where it takes off her beard. You wouldn't know, by looking at her, you wouldn't know that she was male to female unless you could really, really tell, you know what I mean? So, but it's all her. Everything you see is her. No hormone.
Isn't that called electrolysis?
Yes. Yes. See, we got relatives who do that. So she gets to do it through her cousin. But that's as far as she wants to go. She doesn't want to go for the surgery or anything, right? So, and her husband's happy. They're happy. They're a great couple. So, and she met him in Kamloops at a job. But I have another son too, he's 26, and he's all male. He's a man's man type thing, right? So, I was able to raise 2 children from different worlds. Different communities.
It's quite a balance.
Yes, but it's been fun, and I love a challenge. So With one child, I had to be overprotective, and the other child I didn't. So, and I'm an overprotective mom anyway. So.
Well, I feel like I need to just say one thing, and that is that good for her or him.
Yeah.
I'm not only open-minded, I'm open-hearted, and I guess that means I'll have sex with anybody.
Well, she's a tough cookie, I tell you that. I think she's taught me more than I could ever teach her.
But that's what our children are for, is that they are to show their parents how close-minded they are and how to open up our hearts and our minds and our compassion.
Yes. That's so true.
I'll go back to being mute now.
No, but that's a valuable point, because and I think, with so many children now being closed in with their parents, that more parents have had the opportunity to become advocates for their children. Like, how do you think with the issue, like some people being told to take their children back to school at a time when doctors are saying it may not be safe for children to go back to school? Do you think people, now that they've spent more time with their children, are more likely to be stronger advocates for their kids?
Let's hope. Let's hope.
Yeah. Or know them a lot better than what they did. Like being involved with them more, right?
How have you found with art and with, I know people try and typecast particular things to boys and to girls. Like in my house, I have sons, and I have my sons, they know how to cook. They know how to clean. But we had other people who said, oh, boys shouldn't be housekeeping, or, they shouldn't be sewing. You find your sister to do the sewing. Did you have to clarify any people who were trying to give you woe cast for your sons?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Yeah, they put it this way. Both my kids are chefs, and both of them know how to sew. They know how to clean. They know how to look after children when need be. So I think that I never listened to what other people said. I just did what I believed my children needed, right?
One time I was in Kansas City at a conference, and I'm sitting up it was at an arena, and I'm sitting up in the higher, just to stay out of the way, and I was knitting because I had just I'd learned to knit. I had a little 8-year-old, circa 8-year-old, 7-year-old, maybe 9-year-old girl come sit beside me and say, you can't do that. So that early, she's already know that men do not knit. And by the way, I gave it up eventually as a lost cause, but that's not, that has only to do with my dexterity and not to do with little girls telling me you can't do that.
Wow.
And I lived in a culture, I lived in China for a while, and I got to tell you is that my friend who was gay, is that his existence depends on being quiet and being secret. And it's, it'll take us a while to change. What we are here to learn, I believe, is compassion. And that begins with compassion for ourselves, because we're human beings and it's hard to be a human being. And we bring up all these experiences to teach us about compassion. And I hear that your daughter, Kendra, I hear that your daughter, son, I love him already, her already. I mean, not only is she gorgeous in that video, but she's also very, very courageous. And she's learning to have compassion for herself, because she's bringing all these experiences to her that says, you're not supposed to love yourself. And she's saying, piss on you. I want to learn to love myself. And that's the only lesson that we can ever learn is that if we can learn to love ourselves, then we're open and loving to the world. That's my point of view. And I think she's wonderful. It's totally wonderful. And she's chosen a path. You know, in my book, I wrote in fact, it's on my website, and it's a poem called "It's Only $1," and it's about the gift that we give to the world by living our truth. So if you're a hobo on the street begging money, you're giving me an opportunity to experience my compassion, not for him, but for myself.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Give her my blessing or my I don't know my approval. She don't need my approval, but anyway, it's all about love.
She does have a YouTube channel, and there is a segment on there where her followers asked her questions about her and her husband, and asked about how her husband deals with it and this on an everyday basis. So I suggest if you want to get to know her more, please watch the videos.
Well, he does. Could you say or spell her name so people could find her on YouTube?
It's Jerrika, Jerrika McBride, capital M, small c, capital B, RIDE. She's got a few of them on there. She's also, like the business I was telling you about is I bought her a Barbie doll about 3 years ago, just as a gift, because she always liked Barbies when she was younger too, and I always let her play with them. So I bought her this one Barbie doll. Now she's got over 500 Barbie dolls, and she collects them and refurbishes them and then sells them.
That's unique.
Yeah, so like the way she thinks in her mind, she doesn't care what people think, she just does, right? Like she's a sweetheart and very smart. She scares me sometimes.
It shows, you know, how you raised her to be independent and loving. That word you said at the beginning, and that Neil has said a few times, the challenge to us to love ourselves. And if we love ourselves enough, then we can love other people, love the self that other people are projecting.
Well, when she was going through school, there was no transgender support groups, so she created her own. And it got really good too. It's called Queerlings. I think it's still in effect.
And what did she do through that group?
She would have other people in the community would come and join with her and talk about being gay, lesbian, transgender. It was a support group for everybody involved. And she got quite the clientele. I tell you, a lot of people showed up, and she had counselors there that would come and just try to learn from her on what was going on, right? So she was one of the first ones. She was a pioneer, I think. I'm just so proud of her. She did the first on everything. Getting married, you know.
Well, Kendra mentioned that she is interested in writing a book. So we have writers. We have writers in the house. So maybe over these, few weeks, we could encourage her in writing her book or in sharing it. She has sections, chapters or stories. She could definitely, share them with our podcast group.
Well, if we could get her involved in something like this, she can talk, and she's very educated when it comes to talking about this, right? So to get to know her, like I said, if you look at her channel, her YouTube channel, you will see where I'm coming from. That wedding doesn't do her justice. Her wedding video got, I forget how many views on YouTube, but when I did it and I sent it to her. She posted it, and it just went crazy. Everybody loves that video.
It's so affirming and positive that, why not? Why wouldn't anyone love it? And it's intergenerational. I know people listening to the podcast can't see it, but if you go to her website, you'd be able to see this wedding. It was shot by Mom.
Yes. And my mom was there, and my aunt, which they were witnesses for my daughter's wedding. The day she got married was my grandmother's birthday. So everything all fit in, the color purple for my mom, right? Like that day, we only had like 3 months to pull this wedding off. So, and we did it. And being chefs, we were able to cut corners. So it cost us less than $300 to do her wedding.
And finding a minister, did you have how easy was it to find a minister to do the ceremony?
That wasn't hard at all. I forget how they found her, but she was a beautiful person to do the wedding. She came in, did it, and there was no problems with her. And when they talked to her on the phone, she had no problems either. Like, she didn't question who they were or anything. And it was all done legally, right? So it was like nice.
Yeah, that would be a good thing in the stories. One of the things that our group, our podcasters, is doing is Lifeline Stories. And these are stories that would go into a reservoir at the library, initially a reservoir at 411 Center. But just interesting things, because who would know who was the first person to have a legal transgender wedding in BC, that there was even laws against it. So, maybe we can look forward to having someone interview her to capture her story for this reservoir.
Sure. Well, when we were in the park, and right after they got married and they were taking pictures, there was a bunch of people around who thought she was a Kardashian. They wanted their picture taken with her, so she couldn't refuse. But she told them she wasn't a Kardashian, and they said, "We don't care, you're pretty."
That was a wonderful spirit. Well, does anyone else have any questions or comments?
For one thing too, on her YouTube channel, she does drag shows. There's a lady that she knows, her name is Miss Adrian, and she always has Jerica perform, and I've gone to a lot of the drag shows and I love them. They all know me there. I'm the heckler in the crowd. That's my baby.
I think that's one of the things people have lamented, this year with Pride across the country and world, that drag shows are usually abundant, and, that a lot of the locations haven't been able to have an audience.
They do have them on, they are starting to do them on the YouTube channels and things now too, or virtual is what I'm looking for.
Right.
Yeah.
In this Zoom era, maybe we can have a virtual drag show.
There you go. I can get the entertainers.
We're looking at ways to include movement as well as engagement, because with sitting, I was at a conference this weekend, and again, they're talking about sitting is detrimental to us all. We have pains in the butt, we have legs that need more circulation, and so some people are including, get up and move, just different ways of being able to have movement. So definitely, that's something that we can look at. And you mentioned a jigger, that's someone that we will be inviting in September to do a program. Could you say a little bit about what that is?
Jigging is, you can Google that too, but when it comes to jigging, I'm not as familiar with it as this Bev Lambert is. She teaches it. She does skits on YouTube. Jigging is when you move your feet really fast, and there's different steps that they do that has meaning to it. They can jig over a broom, a belt, they all wear the same uniforms, like a little skirt. ribbon skirt. The boys wear a ribbon shirt. It's, if you Google it, you will see. I could never do it. My son was a champion at it, but I could never do it. And my mom could jig, but I couldn't.
So jigging will be coming to us in September.
Yes, yes. When it comes to jigging, I'm not really familiar with it all, right? I'm more into the kitchen and the foods.
Okay, so to give a preview to next week we're going to be talking about walkability issues in Vancouver. Walkability is a part of the city plan for Vancouver. And Neil and Judith are working away with something that's going to be an engaging, interesting program. So tune in next Thursday as we get your views and get you up and walking and encouraging the city to make Vancouver a more walkable place as something that is part of an age-friendly city.
Thank you, Kendra.
Thank you, you guys. I know I was all over the place, but
Thanks, Kendra. No, that was great. It was really inspiring and really exciting and fun.
Very much, Kendra.
Thank you, Kendra. The reason I was late today is that I was at another Zoomcast about community accessibility, and we had a wonderful speaker, and one of the quotes that what you said about your daughter reminded me of what she said, is create the space that you want to be part of.
yes. Boy, you just put everything into perspective for me by saying that.
Nice touch. Nice closing. Thank you so much, Kendra, for sharing and enlightening us and starting another conversation that we can have with others and among ourselves.
Sure. And if anybody ever has questions, you can either contact me or maybe I can get my daughter to speak with you, because I'll see if she'll come on one day.
Okay. And Kendra, what would be the best way for people? Maybe you could put your information in the chat if you don't want to make it like into a public.
I can just say my phone number and everybody can, because you can call me at any time. I'm an open book. So everybody got a pen?
Yep.
778-837-4292.
Thanks, Kendra.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Okay. Take care. We'll be powering up and seeing you again next week. Or here we see each other. and a day will come during September. We're going to be doing some of our Zooms where you'll be able to see us on YouTube. So have a great week.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.